The galactic palace of glass floated in black silence, its crystalline spires catching the light of a dying sun. From a distance it looked serene, like a chandelier hung in the void. Inside, it was chaos disguised as ceremony. Courtiers in embroidered carapaces and translucent robes whispered through their vocal membranes, debating whether genocide could still be called diplomacy. At the head of the marble dais sat the Galactic King, 7 feet tall and glimmering in armor made from compressed starlight. His eyes were twin shards of blue ice. "Order!" he declared, his voice echoing through the glass hall. "Order and obedience." The humans resisted. Their colony on Erebus 3 is no longer extant. A ripple of applause slithered through the alien nobles, measured, polite, as if honoring an unpleasant but necessary harvest. The door hissed. The human delegation entered. He walked alone. No guards. No banners. Just a single man in a black suit and a half-empty thermos in his hand. General Samuel Holt, though here he was introduced as Ambassador Holt, a name meant to make him sound harmless. His boots clicked on the glass floor, a soft human rhythm that seemed too small for the hall. Every alien eye turned toward him, some curious, some disgusted, a few quietly afraid. He smiled like a teacher entering an unruly classroom. "Your Majesty," he said with a slight bow, voice warm, almost lazy. "I brought coffee. You wouldn't believe how long the ride is without it." Laughter rippled through the audience. The king's advisor, a narrow-limbed creature with translucent skin, leaned close and whispered something. The king chuckled. "Your kind brings poison to our palace?" Holt unscrewed the cap, letting steam curl upward. "Only if you drink too fast." He poured a measure into a silver goblet and offered it. The metal hissed, the surface tarnishing instantly. "See? Still safer than your diplomacy." A few diplomats stiffened. One laughed too loudly. Holt's expression didn't change. He took a sip himself, unfazed, and looked up at the towering king. "I came to offer condolences. And to ask permission to retrieve our dead from Erebus 3. "Retrieve," the king repeated, savoring the word as if tasting a new species. "Ambassador, your people were erased. Their atoms are dust in our orbit." Holt nodded, eyes calm, voice softer. "That's fine. We'll collect the dust." There was something in the way he said it, too calm, too polite, that made several aides glance at one another. The king leaned forward, intrigued. "You humans are an interesting breed. So quick to weep, so slow to learn. You reproduce fast, you die fast, and you think tragedy makes you noble." Holt's smile deepened just slightly. "Tragedy just makes us efficient, Your Majesty. We learn better under pressure. You'd be surprised how much innovation comes from being cornered." The hall murmured. The king tilted his head, amused. "Do you threaten me in my own court, little mammal?" "Threaten?" Holt blinked, then looked genuinely puzzled. No. We've learned that direct threats are gauche. We prefer implications." The king laughed, a booming metallic sound that made the floor vibrate. "Your implications are as soft as your species. You humans have no claws. No fangs. Even your wars are emotional." "Maybe," Holt said, setting down the thermos. "But we have memory. That's sharper than claws." The king's eyes narrowed. "Your request is granted," he said at last. "Send your little ships. Gather your ashes. Mourn in silence. But remember this, mercy does not come twice." "Understood." Holt bowed. "We prefer not to need it twice." As he turned to leave, the hall erupted in hushed conversation. The aliens saw only a polite man with strange customs, his back straight, his step unhurried. None noticed how his left hand tapped the thermos twice, a rhythm identical to the activation code for Terran encrypted transmissions. In the corridor outside, the guards avoided his eyes. One of them, a young avian with trembling feathers, dared to speak. "Ambassador, is it true that your people are rebuilding?" Holt paused, meeting the guard's gaze. "We never stopped," he said simply and walked on. Outside the palace, the sky of Varian Prime burned faint violet, the result of constant atmospheric shielding. Far above, dots of light drifted in what appeared to be peaceful orbit. But as Holt looked up, his eyes reflected one of those dots. A human ship, invisible to alien sensors, silent as a ghost. It had been following him for 2 days. He took out his comlink and spoke in an even tone. "Command, this is Holt. Phase 1 complete. The king bought it." A voice crackled faintly. "Acknowledged. Awaiting confirmation of retrieval request." "Give them 3 days," Holt replied. "Then light the candles." He slipped the device back into his pocket, his face calm again, his steps easy. When he reached the landing platform, an alien functionary met him with exaggerated courtesy. "Ambassador Holt," the creature said, "the Council wishes to know if Earth intends to retaliate." "Retaliate?" Holt repeated, as if tasting the word for the first time. He smiled faintly. "No. Earth doesn't retaliate." He stepped aboard his shuttle, the hatch closing behind him. "We reciprocate." The engines hummed. The shuttle lifted from the palace, its shadow gliding across the mirrored towers below. From inside, Holt poured the last of his coffee into the thermos lid, staring at the black surface as it rippled. "They think we're civilized," he murmured. "That's our camouflage." Through the viewport, the palace shrank to a glittering shard in darkness. He raised his cup slightly, a small toast to the stars. "To mercy," he whispered. "The most dangerous weapon we ever made." Far below, in the palace's lower decks, a tremor shivered through the crystalline foundation. The king's aides looked around nervously, assuming it was another power surge. But deep beneath the royal gardens, in the heart of the planetary defense grid, a dormant human probe awakened, its metallic eye blinking once before transmitting a single coded pulse into the void. In the silence of space, far beyond the king's reach, hundreds of Terran vessels received the signal simultaneously. Their engines came alive in unison, faint blue flares blooming like ghostly flowers. Holt watched from his shuttle window, the reflection of those lights glinting in his eyes. He exhaled softly, his expression unreadable. "Let's bring them their ashes," he said. The stars outside flickered, once, twice, and then, for the first time in a century, the galaxy felt the heartbeat of war. The Galactic press hall shimmered like a cathedral of light. Dozens of species filled the balconies, wings, tendrils, and metallic limbs all pressed together in anticipation. Reporters from 100 worlds aimed hollow cameras toward the single podium at center stage, where the first human ever invited to speak after a genocide stood calmly sipping from a dented thermos. General Samuel Holt, still wearing his ambassador's title like a joke that never ended, looked absurdly at ease. His hair was too short, his smile too casual, and the dark circles beneath his eyes told stories of sleepless strategy sessions rather than grief. "Ladies, gentlemen, and others of impressive biological creativity," he began, voice warm, almost amused. "I appreciate your hospitality, though I'd prefer fewer assassination attempts before breakfast." Ripples of uneasy laughter coursed through the crowd. Holt set his thermos on the podium. "Now, regarding the recent disagreement on Erebus 3. Earth would like to clarify, we value forgiveness." He paused, eyes flicking across a dozen alien faces. "But we do keep receipts." The translation systems hesitated, stuttering over the phrase. Then the laughter came, mocking, indulgent, alien tongues clicking in amusement. A six-eyed journalist from the Kreth Dominion raised a limb. "Ambassador Holt, the King of Varian called your losses inevitable pruning. Does humanity accept this explanation?" Holt's smile didn't falter. "Pruning? That's a new one." He tapped his chest lightly. "On Earth, we call that gardening. And gardeners always remember which species tried to strangle the roses." The hall erupted, some laughing at his audacity, others hissing in offense. Cameras flashed. Somewhere in the upper tiers, a telepath fainted, overwhelmed by the mental noise that churned inside Holt's deceptively calm mind. A reptilian general approached after the briefing, his armor rattling with metals. "Your words amuse," the creature hissed. "But you will not scare the galaxy with idioms and caffeine." "Good," Holt said pleasantly. "We don't scare. We adapt." The general sneered. You are amphibious rodents with nuclear toys. Close, Holt replied, lifting his thermos. We're omnivores with long memories. By afternoon, every hollow network in the galaxy was replaying his speech. The clip of him smiling and uttering, "We keep receipts," hit 1 trillion views in 12 hours. Alien pundits argued whether it was a threat or humor. The consensus leaned toward primitive emotional theater. Behind the performance, coded transmissions flickered through diplomatic channels, each polite thank you note carrying fragments of targeting data. Holt's gestures on stage, his pauses, even the clink of the thermos were signals to hidden Terran operatives across the sector. He met that evening with Valai, the insectoid diplomat who had always treated humans with wary respect. Her multifaceted eyes caught the soft light of the lounge, and her chittering voice carried a rare gentleness. "You speak as if you mourn, yet your tone dances with irony," she said. "Humor keeps us civilized," Holt answered. "The moment we stop laughing, someone's already dead." Valai's antennae lowered. "You frighten them more than you realize." "Then I'm doing something right." Elsewhere, deep beneath the palace levels, alien analysts examined intercepted Terran signals and found nothing. They didn't realize Holt's encryption was built around Earth nursery rhymes and baseball statistics, languages of memory rather than code. By the second day, alien diplomats began approaching Holt privately. Some mocked him. Some begged him to restrain Earth's military presence near the border. None saw the glint of exhaustion and calculation behind his calm expression. During a live interview, a floating crystalline reporter asked, "Ambassador, what is humanity's plan for peace?" "Peace," Holt repeated thoughtfully. "That's when everyone stops shooting because they're out of ammo, right?" The crowd tittered. Holt's smile thinned. "Don't worry. We brought extra." The laughter died. The feed cut abruptly to the network's anthem. That night, Holt stood alone in his quarters, staring out at the swirling storms of Varian Prime. The room lights dimmed automatically with the sunset, but he didn't move. He thought of Erebus 3, its cities vaporized, its oceans boiling under plasma fire, and of the decision that had already been made on Earth. Civilization had been the mask. Survival was the face beneath. His comlink chirped. "Admiral Reyes to Ambassador. Project Grey Dawn entering Phase 2. Holt spoke quietly. "Maintain stealth pattern. No engagement until confirmation." "Understood. But sir, they won't see it coming." "Let's keep it that way." He cut the channel, picked up his thermos, and poured the last dregs of coffee into the sink. The dark liquid spiraled away like the color draining from the galaxy's illusions. A faint knock at the door interrupted the silence. The avian guard from before stood outside, feathers fluffed nervously. "Ambassador Holt, His Majesty extends his invitation to the coronation ceremony tomorrow. Your attendance is mandatory." Holt gave a slow nod. "Wouldn't miss it. I hear the fireworks are spectacular." The guard blinked. "Fireworks?" Figure of speech. When the door shut, Holt opened his datapad and stared at the message queue. Each incoming file bore the same coded tag, "Thank you notes." He tapped one open. Coordinates of alien military relay stations, collected by human relief ships supposedly en route to retrieve remains. He whispered, "Good little couriers." Outside the window, the sky pulsed with strange auroras. Alien citizens celebrated the coronation, unaware that the shimmering lights came not from festivities, but from Terran stealth drives refracting solar radiation. Holt's gaze followed the pattern of the auroras until it formed something like a map in his mind, a constellation of quiet vengeance. At dawn, he joined the diplomatic procession. Alien nobles glided past him, perfumed, jeweled, smug in their victory. Holt's suit looked plain among them, his expression unreadable. The king spotted him and grinned, spreading his jeweled arms. "Ambassador, you survived our hospitality." "Humanity's greatest talent," Holt replied smoothly. "Tell me," the king said, his tone dripping mockery, "what does Earth call this day?" Holt considered. "Tuesday." The king laughed. "Such simplicity. Perhaps that is your strength. You never grasped the grandeur of empire." Holt's eyes flicked upward, catching the faint shadow of an orbiting cruiser. Human-made, invisible to the alien retinas. "We grasp it fine," he said softly. "We just prefer it temporary." The king turned away, missing the edge in Holt's voice. Musicians played an anthem written for conquest, its metallic chords echoing through the palace. The aliens applauded, waving banners of the royal crest. Holt stood motionless, his hands clasped behind him, the image of polite endurance. Then a sound slipped through the music, a distant vibration, rhythmic and haunting. It wasn't a weapon. It was a song. The alien dignitaries frowned, confused. The translation nodes couldn't categorize it. But every human ear across the sector recognized the deep, steady beat, old, defiant. "You can run on for a long time." The lyric bled faintly through static, ancient earth gospel carried on encrypted frequencies. "God's gonna cut you down." The king looked upward, irritated. "What is that noise?" Holt didn't answer. He lifted his thermos again, unscrewed the cap, and let the rising steam blur his face. "Signal test," he murmured. "Guess it works." The anthem faltered. The lights dimmed for a heartbeat. Somewhere beyond the palace walls, hundreds of invisible Terran ships adjusted position, aligning silently above Varian Prime like chess pieces waiting for a hand to move them. Holt exhaled slowly through his nose, eyes fixed on the vast stained-glass dome overhead. "Civilization was a lovely experiment," he whispered. "Pity it's about to end." The void above Erebus 3 glowed red from reflected fire. The Galactic King's fleet, 2,000 vessels strong, hung in formation like a crown of death. Their hulls shimmered with victory sigils, banners streaming data into the dark. This was to be their coronation parade, their proof that humanity had been erased. The ashes of cities drifted below like gray snow. Alien broadcasters narrated every second for trillions of viewers. The end of Earth's arrogance, the triumph of empire. Then, mid-broadcast, the screens flickered. At first it was a tremor in the signal, a static murmur. The sound twisted, folded, then resolved into a familiar human voice, calm, precise, unforgiving. "This message," said General Holt, "is for His Majesty." The voice filled every frequency, overriding command channels, even private comlinks. On the king's flagship, his aides scrambled, hissing in alarm. Holt's tone remained almost conversational. "You killed teachers, minors, children. You called it pruning. You dressed murder in ceremony. We asked for justice, and you gave us silence. So now, Your Majesty." A pause, deliberate, surgical. "We'll speak in a dialect you understand." The signal cut. The stars blinked. Then, without light or warning, the human fleet uncloaked. No banners. No fanfare. They slid out of the void like ghosts, black, angular, soundless. The first alien commander to notice whispered, "Impossible," seconds before her sensors failed. The Terran warships bore names that meant nothing to alien tongues but everything to those who'd studied Earth's myths. USS Hannibal, USS Goliath, USS Mary Shelley, USS Stairway to Heaven. The human ships didn't roar into battle. They simply appeared, matte hulls swallowing light. Thousands of microbombers detached, each no larger than a briefcase, their heat signatures masked as debris. The alien admirals laughed at first. "Scrap metal," they scoffed, until the debris changed direction. Then their laughter died. The first detonation was silent. A cruiser vanished, its hull folding inward as though crushed by invisible hands. Another followed, then a dozen more. Implosions rippled through the fleet like falling dominoes. On the flagship bridge, the king roared, "Find their weapons! Track their power source!" But there was nothing to track. The bombs were cold, powered by motion, their guidance purely kinetic. They struck with surgical precision, engines, reactors, command decks. Holt watched from his shuttle, distant, unblinking. Around him, holographic feeds displayed the burning sky. "Report," he said. A young officer's voice came through the comm. "Phase 2 complete. Alien comms in total disarray. Fleet response fractured." "Good," Holt murmured. "Initiate Phase 3. Target the royal carriers. Disable, not destroy. Why disable? The officer asked. Because vengeance without witness is just waste. Far below, Erebus III's ashes glowed brighter as fragments of alien vessels rained down. The fire turned the clouds crimson, and for the first time, the aliens glimpsed what humans meant by a red horizon. Inside the alien fleet, panic dissolved discipline. The reptilian General Sarn shouted orders that went unheard. Valai, the insectoid diplomat, sent desperate messages for ceasefire negotiations. None reached their targets. Terran jammers played classical Earth music across the channels instead, distorted yet oddly serene. Violins hummed over explosions. In the chaos, Holt's voice returned on the Galactic feed. "Don't be alarmed," he said softly. "We're not here to conquer. We're here to teach. You wanted to erase our colony? Consider this a remedial lesson in cause and effect." The king spat curses, his crystalline scepter cracking against the floor. "You dare?" "Majesty," Holt interrupted, his image flickering onto the king's main view screen. He looked almost gentle. "You called us sentimental. You thought our compassion was weakness. But sentiment, your majesty," his eyes hardened, "is just restraint with a clock. Cease your attack, human, or I will." "You already did," Holt said quietly. "Erebus III." Silence fell, even through static. Then Holt gave the final command. "All batteries, halo formation." The Terran fleet obeyed. Ships repositioned in perfect silence, encircling the royal flotilla. Energy signatures flared, not from weapons but from gravitic fields. The aliens watched, confused, as human ships bent light itself into a gleaming ring. "Fire," Holt said. Beams of white-gold plasma arced outward, not toward the fleet, but around it. The sudden gravitational distortion crushed the king's flagship inwards, pinning it within a glowing sphere. The outer ships shattered under the pressure, forming a halo of wreckage. When the light faded, the once mighty royal fleet hung suspended in a silent burning ring, each fragment orbiting the king's crippled ship like debris around a tomb. Alien broadcast channels screamed. Civilizations across the galaxy watched in disbelief as their symbol of supremacy became an art piece of annihilation. Inside the human command vessel Dauntless, crew members stood in stunned quiet. Holt didn't celebrate. He simply said, "Transmit medical frequencies. Pick up survivors. Make it look merciful." An aide hesitated. "Sir, mercy?" Holt's jaw tightened. "Let them live long enough to tell the story." On the crippled flagship, Valai's transmission finally broke through the jamming field. Her voice trembled. "General Holt, stop. They're surrendering. You've won." Holt's reply was flat. "We didn't come to win." "Then what?" "To remind the galaxy why they built gods in our image." The connection died. Outside, the ruins of the royal fleet burned red against the black. The color bled into every reflective surface, painting the void with human rage. Reporters who once mocked humanity's weakness now whispered about the polite predators, creatures who smiled as they dismantled empires. In his private cabin, Holt replayed the broadcast feed of Erebus III, its people laughing under yellow suns before the bombardment. The footage ended in static, then faded to his own reflection. For a moment, the mask cracked. Guilt rippled across his face like a shadow passing over water. He whispered to himself, "We asked for peace, and they gave us purpose." A low beep interrupted his thoughts, encrypted confirmation from Project Grey Dawn. The mission was proceeding exactly as planned. He looked back toward the viewport, where fragments of alien ships still burned like drifting embers. Somewhere, faintly, a voice on the comm asked, "Sir, shall we pursue the retreating vessels?" Holt considered, then smiled without warmth. "No. Let them run. Fear travels faster than fleets." He leaned forward, resting his hands on the console. "Broadcast one final message." The comm officer swallowed. "What message, sir?" "Simple." Holt's eyes glimmered in the red light of the fires outside. "Tell the galaxy. Civilization is closed for renovation." The officer hesitated. "And when they ask who gave the order?" Holt took a slow breath, voice quiet but sharp as a blade. Tell them, the polite one. Far beyond Erebus, across countless star systems, human ships stirred, freighters, colonies, mining rigs, all carrying the same coded pulse Holt had just released. One by one, they went dark, vanishing from galactic networks, slipping beneath the notice of every sensor. In that silence, the stars themselves seemed to dim. Then, on the horizon of Erebus 3, the planet's broken crust ignited, flames curling into a perfect ring visible even from orbit. It was not a weapon, but a message. Across the calm grid, the king's voice broke through, ragged with fury. "You're monsters." Holt stared into the red glow and whispered back. "We were polite until it mattered." The palace of glass no longer gleamed. Its spires burned like candles in the dark, molten rivers spilling through the cracks of what had once been the Empire's crown. The world beneath was silent except for the wind, a thin, metallic whisper that carried the smell of ozone and smoke. Through the wreckage walked General Samuel Holt, his boots leaving faint prints in the ash. Above him, the remains of alien banners fluttered, their insignias warped by heat into meaningless patterns. He moved like a man attending a funeral for an idea. He reached the throne chamber. The ceiling was gone, ripped open by kinetic fire. Daylight poured through the jagged edges, soft and white against the ruin. The king sat slumped on his shattered throne, his starlight armor scorched black. Around him, attendants lay motionless. He was still breathing, barely. His crystalline crown had melted halfway down his temple. Holt approached slowly, every step deliberate. "Your Majesty," he said with the same calm voice he'd used when he first arrived weeks ago. "For the record, this was your mercy." The king lifted his head. His voice came out a rasp. "You called yourselves civilized." Holt's gaze swept over the destruction. "We tried. Civilization only works if everyone agrees to pretend." He crouched down, meeting the alien's dimming eyes. "We played at politeness because it gave us time. It let us build, recover, think. You took our restraint as weakness. You mistook patience for peace." The king's breath rattled. "You lied. About Erebus. There were no civilians." Holt didn't blink. "Correct. Synthetic colonists. Replicated human genomes, programmed for empathy, not survival. A perfect bait. You wanted a genocide. We gave you one to hold." The king's cracked lips trembled. "So you sacrificed nothing?" Holt's tone softened. "We sacrificed the illusion of innocence. Harder to rebuild than a city." He stood, turning from the broken monarch to the open sky. Above the ruined palace, Terran ships drifted silently, their engines idle, their weapons cooling in the stratosphere. What had begun as vengeance had already shifted into something colder, a demonstration. Every broadcast across the galaxy now carried footage of Varian's fall, overlaid with a calm human narrator repeating a single phrase. "We will be civil again, once you remember what that means." Holt touched his comlink. "Status?" "Minimal resistance remaining," replied Admiral Reyes. "The surviving worlds are sending surrender codes. Some are offering reparations. Accept none," Holt said. "We don't need tribute. We need them to remember." A pause crackled through the line. "Sir, the Council on Earth requests confirmation. Do we continue expansion?" Holt looked at the ruined city stretching into the horizon, the bones of towers jutting like broken fingers. "No. Pull back. Leave the ruins. Let the silence speak for us." He shut off the channel and walked toward a fallen pillar. Its glassy surface reflected the sky like a mirror. He caught his own reflection, smoke-streaked, eyes bloodshot but steady. A man who had done everything right, and nothing good. Volai, the insectoid diplomat, emerged from the shadows behind a collapsed arch. Her carapace was cracked, but her voice remained steady. "You could have ended them all," she said. "Yet you stopped. Why?" "Because extinction is easy," Holt answered. "Fear fades. Memory lasts." She tilted her head. "You mean to rule them through shame?" "No," he said quietly. "Through understanding. We've spent centuries pretending we outgrew our nature. Maybe it's time we stopped apologizing for it." Valai's multifaceted eyes shimmered. They will call you monsters. Then we'll remind them who taught us the word. He walked past her, stepping into the light. Outside, alien survivors watched from the streets. Hundreds of species, wide-eyed, trembling. None spoke. Holt stopped before them and raised his voice, amplified by the shattered acoustics of the palace. You asked what happens when humans stop playing civilized, he said. You've seen it. Remember this when you build your next empire. Paint it in gold, fill it with laws and treaties, but build it with respect, or you'll see us again. A murmur rippled through the crowd. Fear, awe, comprehension, mixed into one collective silence. He let it settle before he turned away. Behind him, Valai called. What will you do now, General Holt? He paused. Go home. Maybe teach history again. Or gardening. Gardening. He smiled faintly. It's how we start over. He descended the steps of the palace, each footfall echoing through the empty streets. The wind caught the remnants of banners, carrying them upward, dissolving them into the light. From the horizon, human dropships descended, not for conquest but evacuation. Teams in matte black suits spread out, scanning the ruins for survivors, gathering the wounded. The galaxy's conquerors looked more like medics than soldiers. One soldier approached Holt, saluting. Sir, extraction ready. Final orders. Holt glanced back at the burning city. Upload the message. Then shut down all comms for 48 hours. Yes, sir. What message? He looked at the soldier, eyes cold but steady. Tell them, civilization is optional. The soldier hesitated, then nodded. Understood. Holt climbed aboard the shuttle. As it rose through the ashen air, the full devastation of Varian became visible, a ring of fire circling the equator where orbital strikes had carved the surface. In the center, the ruins of the palace glowed faintly, the heat forming a perfect circle of light. From orbit, it resembled a human eye staring back into the void. In the silence of the cabin, Holt finally allowed his shoulders to sag. He poured himself a measure of coffee from the battered thermos and stared at its surface, dark and trembling. We warned them, he whispered. We asked nicely. A voice came from the co-pilot's seat, young, nervous. Do you think they'll forgive us? Holt shook his head slowly. I hope not. Forgiveness makes people forget. The co-pilot fell silent. Outside, the Terran fleet began to move, pulling away from the burning world, engines flaring blue against the red horizon. Broadcasts across the galaxy still played fragments of Holt's speech, looped endlessly by panic networks. Children of distant species watched it in awe. Soldiers deleted it from archives. Yet the words lingered. As the last ship cleared orbit, a transmission echoed one final time across the stars. A calm human voice, neither cruel nor kind. We will be civil again, it said. When you remember what that means. The fleet entered fold space, and the stars bent like liquid. Silence swallowed the void. Hours later, on an uninhabited moon, an old Terran probe blinked to life, projecting a single image into the emptiness. A blooming rose rendered in red plasma light, petals unfurling where there had once been ash. Humanity's final message to the galaxy wasn't a threat, but a lesson. Beauty born from ruin. And as the image faded, somewhere beyond the folds of space, the echo of laughter, a distinctly human sound, drifted through the dark, low and weary, but alive.